my inner knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path.
Hello.
Hi there.
How are you?
I am feeling great today.
Yeah.
I feel terrific.
Well, I'm glad we're here doing this today.
Me too.
So, yesterday, and I know I'm time stamping this by saying that the abandoned property episode came out, and we have gotten feedback with some questions that people would like some more expansion on. And we so appreciate the feedback. It really is very helpful. So please feel free to post comments on the podcast page. We can clean that up a little bit.
Well, we just expanded out to a bunch more platforms. And
We did.
I know that's what the hesitation is about. Just wherever you're listening, send us comments and we would love to try to dig deeper in helpful ways, any way we can.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. So there's just a few questions I'll read out loud and then we'll just see where all this goes. So I am unsure of what you mean by being in your body. Is it possible you can't really hear your body talk because you are pushing yourself to do so much? How do you know if you have abandoned property? How do you know when you are in your body? So those are just a few of the questions presented to us. So, this is a big topic. Again, so grateful to have those questions asked and the others so that we can dive deeper into this. So, where do you want to start?
With you.
With me. Of course.
Your turn. I mean, you know that I haven't even listened to Abandoned Property. And so there's a piece of that that's, still work for me to do. The avoidance of listening to that. So, but I'm ready to talk about it some more. Let's go.
I would love you to talk more about the avoidance of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just as best as you're aware.
It's not easy to be that vulnerable in front of people. And I do it. And I can rise to the occasion and do it, but it's not easy. And there can be sometimes some shame, I think, is really, now that I'm saying it, it probably is shame for feeling weak, whiny. You've heard me say it. I think it sounds whiny a couple of times before we put that out there. But I set that aside and, willing to go ahead and let people hear the true.
Right.
And even telling more true right now. But I will listen to it. It's important.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't think it sounds whiny. I do think it is just your true where you were in that time when we were recording it.
Yeah. I mean, the roller coaster of life, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any given moment where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. So when I got the first comment asking for more information, I was like, how do I answer that in written form? And there was a big hesitation because I was like, I don't know that I can, I don't know that I can write that out, but I knew we could have a talk about it. So, where to start?
Well, you read the 3 questions. What's the first one again? Just to focus us.
What does it mean to be in your body? Okay. So, as best as I am aware right now at this point in my life with the work that I have done so far, for me, being in my body is slowing down enough that I notice the experience my body is having in all its parts, but also in its entirety. So it's not a simple reflection. It is something that requires, I think, a lot of intention and practical exploration. Like I don't think that I'm in my body most of the time. I just want to be able to be in my body when I choose to be in my body and not think that I'm in my body. So there was something I heard recently, and I wish I could remember where I heard it, but someone said, what's the difference between self-intellectualization and self-awareness? And I was like, that's interesting. And I thought, I think for the majority of the first years of really working on myself, I think it was self-intellectualization. I think I thought that I was more aware of my body. I think I thought that I understood more. I think I thought a lot of things. And I still do think I think a lot of things as opposed to really being in my body. So, what I would say, how do I know when I'm in my body? When I am most resistant is what my experience is, right? Like I have throughout my lifetime had a lot of criticism by people that I knew and didn't know about my body, positively or negatively. I'm tall for a female. And so there was a lot of attention that I received always about my height. And I wasn't someone that wished I wasn't tall. I liked being tall.
You still do.
I do still do. I do like being tall. And I can't tell you all the reasons why, but I do think there was probably a fighter protector, piece advantage, that I had by being tall.
Oh, you are a warrior.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And in looking at my body, really allowing myself to see myself in my body is something that I am aware there is resistance to. Looking at my naked body in the mirror is difficult. I keep working on it. I really, truly want to accept the wholeness of my body and all of it, and all that it is, brought into my life as well. Right now, there is a distraction with the surgery I had 4 years ago that went bad. And I've had to have some follow-up stuff. And so now I have this big scar on my abdomen. That's really all I see when I'm naked right now. And I hope someday that it's not what it is right now. And so I just keep trying to see my body beyond that. And so I know that I'm in that place, when I'm looking in the mirror and I am trying to see myself, and I know the resistance is there, just turn away, just avoid, look quickly, Like, I know then, like, I'm in my body, but I'm resisting, like, being in my body. Because there is a certain amount of shame that comes up, which is I'm aware of because I look down and to the side, right? Which is our shame, reaction. And so I'm aware that it's happening. And it's still difficult to allow myself that full. Oh, Walker's handing me a Kleenex. Dripping on my shirt. Thanks,
Sorry,
babe.
sweetie.
No, it's okay. I mean, the emotion's okay. The tears are okay. The dripping snot is okay. And so the resistance for me is like an awareness. Like I'm trying to be fully in my body right now. Like I'm making effort. And there's still that part of me that says no. And I don't think this is the same experience for everybody. I'm just sharing mine, right? Like some people may have worked on that part, right? And they're they're better about looking at their body. And so when they're doing that, they're in their body, but maybe not in other ways. For me, other ways that I know that I'm in my body when I am relaxing, like a meditation or an intentional, like I'm not going to do anything but just sit here on the back deck or something and I don't fall asleep. I feel like those are times that I'm in my body because that is something that I was really good at. Sit still, fall asleep. Didn't matter. Driving. Sit still, fall asleep. And that was me not being in my body. Oh, I think about, when I opened the journey home, and we've talked about this, so much of that, starting that was stuff I did by myself. I mean, people would come up, my parents would come up and help, but a lot of times I was up there by myself. And so it was a lot to get that ready, to open. And in front of the journey home is this steep hill. And it gets steeper the farther north you go. And so trying to cut the grass was difficult. So I'm cutting and I'm standing at the bottom of the hill and I'm pushing the mower up the hill and then letting it roll back down and then up the hill and roll back down and up the hill and roll back down. And remember, as I'm going down or to the north, the hill is getting steeper. And I just keep going until I literally cannot push the mower any farther.
Mm-hmm.
And it rolls back down and I stop and I'm staring and I'm looking at the hill and it hits me that the steeper the hill got, the farther I pushed the mower up the hill.
Mm.
And I was like, God.
What did it tell you?
Well, that I can push through any messages that my body gives me. That try harder. When it's harder, you try harder. Right?
Yeah, go ahead. Are you out of your body at that point? Or are you in your body at that point?
Then I think I'm in my body because I literally have the awareness of it. But I wasn't in my body when I was mowing.
It's the after the mowing.
It's
while you're pushing harder.
Right.
Out.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Absolutely. That is a survival piece. Just do harder, do harder, do harder. I think developing the awareness to be able to reflect back, to stand back and look, that's a developed skill, right?
Right.
To see, oh my gosh, that is crazy.
Yeah.
That I'm pushing a mower up the hill farther as it gets harder. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So not in my body while it's happening. No awareness. Right. It's upon reflection that I can see and learn. I believe that I have done a good job thinking myself through a lot of things.
As we do. Tell me more.
Yeah. I mean, I think I wish that finding the words weren't so difficult. I mean, as we're talking, there are so many examples that come to mind. And for me, it's like, what one's most relevant right now? What one really is most helpful? What one tells the clearest story? And that's where I'm struggling right now, right?
Sure.
Trying to give examples of how I feel like I know I'm in my body. And it's interesting because this was going to be a separate topic. It's actually what we were going to record today, but it feels so relevant to this conversation. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So when I started doing my work really intentionally, I was aware in that beginning, like that I was probably anxious most of the time, that I always carried some, I'm going to call it anxiety in my gut, like always unsettled. But I think it had been that way forever, that it was just a part of me. Like I just knew it was a part of me. And as I started doing the more experiential work, whether that was psychodrama or hypnotherapy, which is different than hypnosis, but those more like releasing from the body type experiences, very experiential therapy modalities, that anxiety that I had in my gut started fading. And I would notice that there were times that it wasn't there. And that was interesting to me.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, that is relieving, exciting. And so that was very motivating for me to continue doing that type of work, even though it was very difficult. I mean, I had so much resistance to doing that work. I mean, if I could think of any reason to avoid doing that type of focused on the body work, but I also what?
Well, I'm just imagining all the things that I do to avoid something that I need to do. You know,
Right.
all of a sudden vacuuming becomes really interesting to me,
Right.
and cleaning the bathroom even, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, I don't want to get us out of your zone here, though.
No, it's okay.
It brought that vision to mind because it's what can happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We can find all kinds of things to do.
No, but to get you back into it, it's giving me hope.
Yeah.
Because I carry that anxiety still, and I've been, working on myself for 7 years now.
Right. So quickly. And then we're going to come back
Yeah.
to the hypnotherapy and then where I was going with which was a lot of practice. But how much do you resist doing the body work, the releasing of stuff from your body? Hitting, the pillow.
Oh, I don't like to hit the bag.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Right. Yelling into a pillow, all the things that we talk about releasing. Like, how much do you resist doing those things?
It's a big resistance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I know.
And it's so strange because on one hand that would be really good, but there's something about holding on to that what's familiar.
Right.
And I've got big eyes over here because I'm like, are you effing kidding me? Really? Yeah, that's the truth. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember a woman that I worked with years ago. We did hypnotherapy and she was a writer. That was her full-time position. And I think she came to me for hypnotherapy. And after we did the first session, I remember her feedback was that her writer's block was gone. And I don't even know that we met that many times. It seemed like maybe 3 or 4 times. And I remember her sending me a message, which was, anytime I have a writer's block, I go hit that bag and it's gone. And I was like, wow. I mean, but she just chose to keep stepping in, right? Like and it was just such a beautiful thing to watch her, like, I'm not letting this get in my way. I know this works and I'm going to keep doing it. But it's hard. It is hard to do. I remember when I was first exposed to that, and to me, it's like an energetic release, like something's trapped in my body. I'm trying to get it to move. And it was very difficult for me at first to hit the punching bag because, first of all, I didn't know how to punch and it felt violent. And when I was younger, I was very violent. And I made a choice at 13 that I wasn't going to be that person again. So as part of the training, when they, presented that, I mean, huge resistance came up for me that, that is not, I will not be that person again, because it was scary to think about getting out of control again.
Sure.
And so, but once I was able to shift that story in my mind, that this was literally removing from my body, it was intentional. It wasn't a hypnotic. It wasn't hitting thoughtlessly. It was very intentional.
Right.
Like, get out of my body, get out of my body,
Right.
get out. And I hung a big hanging bag, 70-pound bag in my basement. And sometimes, like, I would recognize that I had that feeling in my gut, but I didn't even know why. It was just there. And I would go down and I would just start hitting the bag. And I'd be like, whatever the fuck this is, get it out. Whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but it needs to go, and I can hit the bag now, like, poof, crazy.
Sure.
So where I got trained, some places use plastic bats, some places use tennis rackets. But the place that I went to used these sections of high pressure water hose, which is amazing. I mean, it's nice, it's flexible, but it's firm. And there is something about that, for whatever reason, that just like releases from your body. And so that's what I use, because I still can't punch. And so for me, if you put me in front of a punching bag and asked me to punch it, I'd probably just start laughing.
Or break your hand.
Or I would probably just start laughing because I wouldn't know what I was doing. But that was really helpful. And that was something that I taught my kids growing up. You don't get to hit each other. That's absolutely not acceptable. So if you are struggling, you can go hit the bag. And so great for them to release that.
Sure. Instead of storing it in their body.
Yeah. Instead of storing it in their body, instead of vomiting it on somebody else, right? Just get that energy out, and then we can have the conversation.
Yeah.
Later. So, and that bag is still hanging there.
It is.
So
let me ask you something. When you do hit the bag, this thought just occurred to me. You're talking about intent while you do it.
Yes.
And so do you think that if you just flail away without the intention, are you really getting yourself back into your body?
No, I don't think so.
Right. And so tell us, what's the difference when you set the intention? How is that bringing you into your body while you're doing that physical release?
Sure. Well, for me, it's, do I feel lighter as I continue, or do I amp myself up, right?
Sure.
Am I getting myself more angry, right? Am I holding on? I mean, I'm physically hitting the bag, but I'm actually like holding it in as more protection. Or am I saying to myself, actually releasing this allows me to be more fully in my adult? Releasing this allows my body to feel less pain. Releasing this helps me to think more clearly. For me, it's that, because there are, plenty of people that I've worked with over the years who didn't hold the intention. They're like, man, that just made me more angry. And then it's like, okay, well, if you hold this intention, how does that make you feel? It's like, oh, well, that was helpful. Right.
Well, you're establishing or reestablishing, a connection,
right?
Brain, body, soul together, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just brain,
right,
or just body, or just around out there,
right.
Fascinating.
So going back to that experience of then not carrying this always in my gut, right? This very intentional release that I did over several years. I want that to go, whatever that is, I want it to go. And sometimes I could identify it, frustration or anger or jealousy or abandonment or whatever. Like, and again, sometimes I couldn't. I just want that feeling to go. And it is rare that I have that feeling in my gut. So then for me, there was also the practicing of, what information is my body giving me? Because I feel like the stomach was like my distraction from the rest of my body. if I just stay anxious all the time, right? There may be other things going on, but I don't have to pay attention to them because whatever I felt in my gut was the loudest. Does that make sense?
Sure.
I think our body does a really good job of adapting to what our intention is.
Tell us more.
So,
there's a whole lot wrapped up in that sentence.
Right. There is. So again, I just think about myself and clients that I've worked with over the years. And, when we have a part of our body that continues to hurt, and we talked a little bit about this in the abandoned property, episode 1, you said something about your trapezius, right? And it's not just old man, like there's something else there, right?
Yes, it's
right.
true.
And I believe that that's true. If our body keeps giving us information and there's not a specific injury, I'm not talking about if we have a specific injury, but that, unexplained, like I can't figure out what this is about. I've done all the things, right? We are missing something.
Absolutely.
Right. And so we talked about, I think also about you talking to it. And you said you hadn't gotten an answer yet. Right.
Right.
And so sometimes I feel like, the pain is a distraction from something else as well. I think it can give us information, but I also think, what is it distracting me from?
Interesting. It's the second time you've said it that way.
Mm-hmm.
When I said that sentence had a whole lot packed up in it.
Yeah.
You were making the same point, and there's a disconnect for me about, is it a message from your body or is it a distraction by your body to keep you from doing something else? Or is your brain getting so caught up, oh, there's pain, instead of looking at, well, why is there pain?
Well, I think it can be both.
That journey.
Well, I was thinking I am complex, right? Because I don't think we're that black and white.
Well, for sure.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So for me, I think, okay, what message could it be giving me? And I like referencing Louise Hay's book, Healing Your Body. Dang it, I can't remember the name of it at the moment. But I think that's right. That might be what it is. I think it's good to look to see if there's, messages there, things to consider. I'm not looking for the answer, right? But are there things to consider?
Right.
And then, yes, what might I be avoiding? Really looking at. Because there often is things we're avoiding.
Well, without a doubt. And I guess, another one of the questions or comments was slowing down. And I think the slowing down piece takes me back to your story about pushing the mower up the hill.
Okay.
Because when it rolls down the last time and you look back over the road, you're like, oh my gosh, but that's a slowing down point.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing with pain in the trapezius or wherever in your body. You can get lost in that space, or you can create space within your mind by slowing down, getting yourself grounded, which just means taking a breath, feeling it flow through your body. It can come in different ways.
Yes.
Feet on the floor, taking that minute to get centered, bring me back to here, the present. And then you start asking those questions that you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
For me, that's what gets me back in my body most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It just made me think about a conversation I had last week with some people about this topic that keeps coming up that seems to have no resolution. And, I said to them, I really want you to think about what else might be going on that we're avoiding. What is it that we're really not talking about? Because this seems like a topic that's easy to talk about, not easy as in there's plenty of trauma around it, but it's a known area of conflict. I feel like there's something else that isn't maybe a known area of conflict that we're avoiding. But we can touch that one. That one's familiar, right? Even if it's painful, it's familiar. What are you experiencing as I say that?
Oh, I had a teacher, a mindfulness meditation teacher who I respect, tell me, do you think that you could be addicted to the trauma? And that made me think of that when you were saying it.
Yeah.
Touch on one thing that's familiar instead of working on just releasing in general and looking more broadly at what's happening.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I mean, thinking about that. I mean, I hear the words, addicted to trauma. What I think when I hear that is, oh, you're still protecting yourself with the trauma. Like the trauma somehow is, providing you the trigger or the reaction is still providing you, protection in some way. And I'm not saying in a healthy way. I'm just saying that, well, I don't know. Maybe it could be depending on the circumstances, right? If there is safety in your life, it may not serve a purpose other than fear of releasing it. But, there's plenty of us that are living in experiences that aren't safe. And so the trauma still provides needed protection. What's happening for you now?
I must be making some big eyes or something.
Yeah.
No, I just, in thinking about it, I don't know. I'm not grasping onto the protection piece. What I'm seeing, and I'm not talking about active events, right? Not active trauma, abuse, whatever might be happening in your world. I'm talking about trauma from the past.
Yeah.
And just as you were speaking, and I feel like this is pretty freewheeling. So you're opening up pathways and I'm running down sideways and hopefully not getting us too off track. But it's like you drive past the car crash and you look.
Yeah.
And so it just struck me that those past traumas, if you could be just continuing to look at, and there's something that's familiar about, swimming in that, I don't know, toxic water that is really, to me, it's stuck energy that needs to be allowed to pass through.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what's going on over here. It's because I still have that ball in my gut.
Right.
And I guess the point for, everybody is it's not going to happen in a day.
No.
It may not happen in a decade.
Correct.
But it's just, as one of our favorite teachers says, it's inclining the mind.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is just inclining your mind to moving along the path of being present in your body, asking more than just what's immediately on the surface. I think is I'm trying to bring us back to where we started, which is how do you know you're in your body, right?
Yeah. It's interesting as you're talking, I'm thinking about, can it be not so complicated in figuring it out? I don't know. But what I was wondering as you were sharing was if we're still holding on to things, anger, frustration, guilt, shame, and it's causing us this higher level of distress. Is that enough for us to know we're not in our body, at least during those times? when we're in that level of distress. And I'm not saying I know the answer. I don't know that I've thought about it that way. I'm just kind of rolling it around in my mind, whether that might be for us an indication. I mean, because I know that if that's, if we're in that space, okay, it's like, well, that's still work to do, right? If I am angry, frustrated, feeling helpless, out of control, afraid, it's like, okay, there's something there. And it doesn't mean that the situation doesn't account for that, right? I mean, the reaction can be very appropriate to the situation. I'm not talking about that. But do we stay in our adult? Because I think if we drop into our child, we're not in our body. I think if we can stay in our adult, and I mean really stay in our adult, when I was talking earlier about the self-intellectualization, just so you know, I've practiced saying that word the last week or two several times.
3 times fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Good job.
Because I wasn't doing so well the first few times. So it's a big one. And so I'm not talking about that. I really believe if we really can stay in our adult, that might be indication. And again, not the writing reflex, not the compensatory, not the overthinking where I am acting like I'm in my adult, but I mean, really, truly, I can think clearly. I am grounded. And then I think, ooh, that's a big conversation. Because I think often we think we're our adult because we're thinking we're in our adult.
No, here's, a thought that I had as you were saying that is, and I've been working on this, I'm moving beyond having to know, or relive exactly what it was that happened or figure that out. And just recognizing when I'm out of my body, I'm in my mind, just thinking, it's just whirling and something comes up from the past. And if emotion comes up about something from the past, it's a really good sign for me to recognize I am not in my body.
Mm.
And then, I'm specifically working on that's a sign to relax and release. It's a Michael Singer thing, which is there's different methods of coming to the same thing. There's the rain technique that we learned, in the mindfulness class, and Michael Singer is I am equating those two essentially. But in any event, I think, you can be lost in thought. And if emotion is coming up around it, that's an opportunity to recognize it. You're stepping back, looking into and bringing yourself into your body.
Yeah.
Which is now I can observe as an adult. But if I'm feeling the emotions, I'm back whenever that happened.
Yeah.
So I don't know. To me, it's a combination of, listen, just because you sense pain in your body or an emotion comes up doesn't mean that you're present in your body.
Right.
It probably means you're not, but that's your flag to, hey, I'm not in my body. Let's step back from this situation, take a breath.
What's happening?
And see what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's not just, hey, my shoulder is quote unquote killing me.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Other things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's an adult move. The child move is swimming around in that anger or the shame or whatever it is that's coming up.
Right. Right.
You're getting big eyes over here.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to make sure that we're clear that we're not saying that this is simple and that if you have pain in your body, it means you're never in your adult. Not saying that.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No. And you could have a lot of physical reasons why there's pain.
Absolutely.
Disease process, injury, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But pain in the body can also be an emotional issue or the body sending you a message.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so looking at it helps you discern.
Yeah.
Which is based on our conversations. I believe discernment, and you've heard me ask our guests, what do you mean by discernment? To me, it's looking at it without swimming in the emotion.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. For me, judgment is with emotion and discernment is with the smallest amount of emotion as is possible in that moment.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
The fact that we're circling around this thing shows how complex it is. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know that there is an answer. Just, for me, having the discussion, allowing, more thought process. I mean, what I was thinking when you were sharing was, man, I wish we had, like 2 or 3 more people here where we could say, give us an example of this, right, happening. And then is that me in my body or not in my body? And maybe that's something people can, post as a comment, whether it's on Spotify or Facebook or Instagram, of situations that we could have a conversation around. That would be really helpful. I think, giving those really concrete examples can be helpful. What might be happening in this, situation that might indicate whether I'm in my body or out of my body when this is happening. So please feel free to do that, and we will do our best to walk through some of those situations.
Yeah, keep working through it. I mean, it's that opportunity for us to use an example from anybody who's listening to dig at this a little bit more, try to help all of us figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So helpful.
Yeah. So we can find out what it is for us, I think what you spoke about, the slowing down, I just think resistance gives us so much information. I really do. I just feel like it's one of the biggest gifts we have is if we can recognize when I'm having resistance. When I'm having resistance, there's something here for me to learn from. It doesn't mean it's always clear, but it's just paying attention. So for me, whenever I notice resistance, I'm like, okay, what was that about? What was happening for me? What was I feeling? What was I thinking? What did I want to do? All of that. It's all information. So for me, resistance, and then, or pushing through. That's another one, for me, when I've exhausted myself and then can step back and be like, what was that about? Why did I push through that?
Well, where was I when I was pushing through, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, what I feel like we're starting to develop is a list of signposts.
Right.
For when you're not in your body for purposes of, doing what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And those are a few.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think if we can recognize those signs, then we can start to learn what the difference is between just being in our head or in our body, and both.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish there was an answer, obviously, but I do think it's a process, one that we're still in ourselves. Yeah, it's so interesting, babe, when you talk about, I still carry that in my gut, that it's still there, despite all the work that I've done. I think, okay, well, are you holding on to it for a reason? Or have you ever intentionally tried to release it?
I'm in that process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, when I talk about the Michael Singer relax and release, I'm specifically thinking about that spot, and I'm touching it right now.
Yeah.
It's below my solar plexus over to the left.
Yeah.
And so putting some intention on just letting it go. I don't even need to know what it is. If it wants to tell me, that's great. And I've asked, and I'll continue to ask, but I don't need to get all the particulars.
Yeah.
What I need is to allow whatever that is to go.
Right.
And I'm working on it. And when I feel it, when I feel the shoulder hurting, those different things, or when I'm on my walk. And I remember the time my dad, came home from work and, did whatever. And I'm getting hot thinking about it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe he treated me that way. And blah, blah, blah. All those to me are the signposts. Hey,
right.
You were so far out of your body, buddy, come back. But the great opportunity is if you recognize where you're holding whatever it is,
Yeah.
that trauma or that experience or those experiences. For me, that's that spot. Putting some intention to just relax and let that go. That's what I'm trying right now. And I'll let you know how it works out.
Well, when I see you do that process when it happens, it's always, so sweet for me to watch you putting that effort in there. When you talked about, the getting hot and having that, the memory, I believe our body is incredibly intelligent. I truly, truly
Agreed.
do. Way beyond our understanding, way. So I don't want people to hear like dissociation is bad. To me, dissociation is protective. Like our body learned, I don't know if I'm going to survive if I stay. Our body still has a memory of it, right? Which is when I think it's stuck. But we have to go somewhere else in order to survive this.
I know how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know how to do it. I know that it happens.
You do.
Too.
Right. You do it. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I do. I think for me, that was when I sit still, I fall asleep. I recognize that now. It was such a joke during continuing education. If I felt like I was trapped in a place, that I would fall asleep. And I would tell the person sitting next to me, if I fall asleep, just nudge me, because it was expected that if I felt trapped, I would fall asleep. And I've worked really hard to not do that, because to me, the falling asleep is dangerous.
Sure.
So stay vigilant.
Sure.
Really is the direction that I chose to go in for whatever reasons. That's where I chose to go, is to be very vigilant and to see as a lot, to observe a lot.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. And I think the amount of dissociation, I've learned a lot about dissociation myself, but also in relationship with you, because I understood it, but I didn't really understand it. And it really, when you really understand what someone's body is doing to protect them, it's like, wow, there's this, the compassion, for you when it does happen, and I'm not talking about the tired dissociation. I'm talking about the triggered dissociation, right? And this awe that I have as well about the body's ability to protect us. It's a lot to experience. And I'm grateful that I understand it better. And I wish that it wasn't something that you specifically had to learn to do. And I don't mean consciously, I mean out of survival. And, the other people that have had to learn that too, out of survival. And I think it is an unwinding that takes a lot of time to convince our mind and our body that we're safe enough to be here.
So what's all the emotion?
I think that it's a wish that we weren't so afraid to see ourselves. I wish that we weren't so afraid to step towards the parts of ourselves that inevitably bring harm in our relationship whether it's intimate relationship or children or friends or coworkers. I wish we weren't so afraid. I wish we could see ourselves as fundamentally good. And I'm not talking about the outliers. I've talked about this before. We're not all, I don't believe we're all born with a fully functioning brain. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the greater majority. But I don't think we do see ourselves that way. And so for the people that harmed us and didn't ever do their work, wishing that it wasn't so scary for them to step towards that. For the places that those that experienced harm to them, whether it was the people that did it to us or the people that we've done it to, all along, the line. I wish it wasn't so hard to choose to do everything we can to stop this, what you called, I think, the first time, family legacy, as opposed to generational trauma.
Oh,
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just continuing to pass it down, whether the behavior is similar or compensatory to what we experienced. I know it can be different. I know it can be.
Well, sure. I mean, I'm confident that I've done more to break that cycle from my family legacy for my daughter.
Yeah.
A ton.
Yes.
Does that mean I'm perfect at it? No.
Yeah.
But she's had a very different experience.
Yeah.
All the way through her childhood, but especially in the last 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And the answer isn't a quick one.
No.
I've been working on this for, oh my gosh, almost 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't trade a second of it. I want people to have hope that it can be different, that we really can, and that we're never too old to change our relationships with people. I mean, it doesn't mean that the person on the other side is open, but I mean for us, that we can engage with people differently, that we can see ourselves more clearly and see others more clearly. And again, it's not about not holding boundaries. It's not that. I really want people to hold on to that hope that their experience can be different. And sometimes that is changing relationships. And that's hard too, because we tend to just want the people we're in relationship to change, to fit the change that's happening inside of us. And that's not usually how this goes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so at all.
No.
And I've been that hoper.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I know is that we can change ourselves.
Yeah.
And that can include boundaries. It can include, I think it's Les Brown who said, some people are there for a reason and some people are there for a season.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to establish those lines and reconcile it within ourselves. But what we can do is work on us.
Yes. Yeah. And, and if you're a parent and your relationship with your child is a struggle, step into the work for yourself, even if your child isn't interested. I think it's worth it.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I agree 100%. And when you start doing that, whether they want to listen or don't seem like they're listening,
yeah,
part of them is listening and part of them is watching.
Yeah.
And so you can lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
An imperfect example, but an example that is moving towards doing better.
Absolutely. It makes me think about this woman that I worked with years ago, so wanted healthier relationship with her kids. And she was, mid to late 70s, and just
It's lovely.
made me so thrilled. And, but trying to work with her individually was difficult, right? Because she has her perspective of what those relationships were like and her frustration and where she thinks, the problems are. And what was so brave of her is when I asked her to provide me copies of written communication between her and her children, whether it be text messages or emails. And she literally sent me, I think it was over a decade worth of emails. And I printed them out, and I went through and I highlighted every time that she invalidated her child. Every time that she missed him when he said, "This is who I am," and she said, "No, that's not who you are." I mean, not directly, but you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, as we do.
As we do, right?
Without even realizing.
Right.
Sometimes intentionally.
Yeah, but no, I mean, right. And that she, as we went through those things and I pointed them out to her, right? How she was able to take it in, as painful as it was. What she valued more was her relationship with her child instead of her story about who she was.
That's a hard mirror to look into.
Yes. Yeah. And she did. And when she would try to, communicate with him, I mean, he had stopped talking to her and hadn't, but she was reaching out and sending notes. And so she would send me a draft and I would say, "How about this?" Instead. And then he started responding, and they have a relationship now. And it's something like it's never been. Even though he was in his 40s, right? And she's in her 70s, I think maybe in her 80s now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And just how they are having for the first time in their lives a relationship where they see each other. So it's not ever too late, right? And she loves that boy with all her heart. It wasn't that.
Right.
She literally just could not see how she got in the way of seeing him. And so he did what he felt like he had to do, which was distance himself.
Let me ask you this, try to bring that full circle.
Yeah.
When she was able to look at those at that decade, oh my gosh. I mean, I've got a pit in my stomach just thinking, man, if I had a video of my entire, 10 years of me interacting with my daughter, parts would be so hard, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that she got present in her body when she was looking at that history?
Yes.
What tells you that?
Because she could hear it. She didn't deflect. She didn't justify. She didn't defend. She just said, "Okay, I can do that." Right. Because the leaving her body would have been deflecting, defending, right? That's
sure.
Right. I cared more about believing the story that I've chosen to create as opposed to the relationship, right?
Right.
Right.
Wow. So desire for relationship and recognizing that letting go of the story and the pride, the ego piece, all those pieces to have a relationship in the present.
Yeah. Again, if the other person's willing to, right? I mean, like we can do our part and that person either responds or they don't. Now, it's possible her son could never have responded to her attempts, right? But he did. In this particular case, he was someone that was willing to risk trusting her again.
And for her, I would think. I'm just putting myself in there, okay? Because I, not her, I can't speak for her, but just even if he hadn't, the process of accepting the impact, regardless of her intent, accepting the impact of what those words that were in all those emails had to say or texts, even if he had not responded. And I think you said he didn't at first. So it took time continuing to bid.
Absolutely.
Hey, I was thinking this, keeping it short, those sort. I had to do this with my daughter too, in a different way, but similar too. And it would be heartbreaking if he hadn't responded, or in my case, my daughter hadn't responded. But it's the process for yourself too, right? It's taking the risk that they may not. And I can be okay with that too. Doesn't mean that I don't love them, or, it may never happen. It just isn't happening now.
Right. And that would be us staying in our adult. Right.
Yeah.
I can do my part. This is what I can do. And I can, regardless of what they choose, I'm going to keep growing and learning and improving all of the relationships that I have in my life.
Yeah.
Right.
I know we're waxing long at this point, but it is so fascinating. But something I learned, and I've told you this many times, and I still think it's relevant in so many ways. And in this conversation, especially this discussion about parenthood, and reestablishing relationship, and it could be in different contexts as well. But somebody taught me through telling her own story that continuously apologizing for past conduct and for present failures does not necessarily help reestablish relationship or change relationship, because it makes the narrative about the person's shame, the parent's shame, and in my case, right?
Oh, sure. I would say
that's a whole nother episode. I know, but we're touching on a lot of things here, and I'm just like, wow, it just came right back.
Yeah. So we can, let me finish this and then we can wrap this episode up, because there will be more.
I know.
There will be more.
Thanks for bearing with us, everybody.
But yes, when, as I continued this journey and I learned more and more and more and more, right, all the time. I just felt like shit, like what my oldest went through, because I was just so surviving and flailing and having no idea how to be a mother. And every time I had an awareness, I would apologize to him.
Sure.
I'd be like, "Ooh, I'm so sorry." And one time he said, "I don't want you to apologize to me anymore. I know how hard you're working to be a good mom." When you apologize again and again, it makes me feel like you think there's something wrong with me. That is the exact opposite of what I want, right? So I did not apologize. I was over apologizing.
Right.
Which was about me.
Yes.
Wanting him to tell me, right? And then he's like, "No, I know you did. But you're also making me feel like there's something wrong with me." Okay. Well, thank you again for bearing with us as we continue to walk through this topic that is complex, and it is really complex. This will probably be the longest episode we've done so far, but please give us feedback, questions, things that you're thinking, a scenario that we can talk through. Like I said, either send it, post it to one of the platforms, or on the Facebook page or something, and we will gather those and continue to explore these topics.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you, and you can teach us.
Yeah.
We can all teach each other and walk each other home, right?
We will. Yes, all teach each other.
Nice.
And walk each other home. I love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.